Good afternoon, I hope you are fabulous. Today we are going to have a creative session where I'll be sharing ideas with you live on how to create something beautiful with old shoe boxes, gift boxes, any boxes that you have in and around your house. Creating it from drab to fab. And the steps are quite easy. It's a creative session, and I think one of the most amazing things about being creative is not to worry to make mistakes. Seeing that we're working with paint and especially charcoal, it is so easy to transform something. So sit back, relax, have fun, find inspiration in this session, put everything behind you that's a worry, and just enjoy. So I am going to share tips and techniques on stenciling, anti-glazing. I've seen on our Facebook pages that there were a few questions on antique brown glazing. I'm going to share some ideas and inspiration on antique brown glaze. And I'm also going to show you how to transform embellishments into something beautiful. And this is just a relaxing, creative session. We just finished month end and salaries. So the fact that I'm standing here and that I'm ready is actually a miracle. Okay, so this is what we are going to use. And this is what we are going to create with that. Okay, so it's the same box. It was just chocolate and transformed. You can see this is a DIY project. I haven't even had time to put in the nuts, but that you can do, put in a handle in your box's lid and have something stunning. This is beautiful for a bathroom. It's beautiful if you don't want to have the lid on, to put throws in it or magazines if you have a square or rectangular box. So enjoy. Let's start. So I'm just going to put this over here and create some workspace for myself. Okay, so the first important step when working with charcoal, and I'm sorry if I repeat myself, bear with me. We have a lot of new people on the Facebook pages and also on YouTube to make sure that they understand charcoal and the application and preparation. So the first very important step when working with charcoal is to clean your surface well with lacquer thinners. So I'm using a cloth. I'm not going to do it now as there's a 40-minute drying time that needs to happen. Or let's do it on the lid so that you can see the application. Wear gloves. I am not wearing gloves. Sorry, I forgot. I actually just ran into the house and set the table. So you thoroughly clean. Make sure you work with a very wet cloth. When painting onto wall tiles, you don't need to prime, you don't need to sand, but you need to wash off your wall tiles well. Even melamine kitchen cupboard doors, charcoal grips to those surfaces without a primer, without having to sand. But the most important step is to wash those surfaces off well using lacquer thinners. And then what you do, wear gloves, wear a mask, make sure there's ventilation in your space. You wash the surface, and I'm even going to do it with these boxes. What the thinners does, it etches the surface so that the paint can grip. So you wash it off. It's not just a wipe, it's a wash to remove any greasiness, any dust, any residues, especially on wall tiles. There's mold buildup. If your wall tiles get washed with chemicals, there's a chemical build-up, and all of those residues need to be removed before you can paint with charcoal on it. Now the advantage with lacquer thinners is the fact that it evaporates. You don't need to clean afterwards or wash off afterwards with something else. I'm just going to remove this because it stinks. And now once you have washed off your surface, you allow a curing time, a drying time of 20 to 40 minutes before you start painting. With charcoal, it's not necessary to add water to your paint or work with a wet paintbrush. You can simply use a clean, dry paintbrush I was fortunate. Hamilton sponsored me with some new brushes, so I like to use Hamilton's brushes. But after you've used a brush, and you will see here are some used brushes, I wash them immediately in water. Make sure the bristles are nicely rubbed next to each other, and then I put them away. But immediately after each use, wash in water and look after your brushes. But no need to wet the brush before you start working with charcoal. Our theme for today is a lovely Paris theme. Okay, so this is a vintage Parisy look and feel. So I've selected some colors that really works well to create a theme like that. So it's fine lining, dovet, dory stance, and then cement grey. I'm just going to remove my scarf, else everything will be full of charcoal very soon. I'm going to select, let's say, dory stance. I wet my brush in my dory stance, and I'm also going to show you when working with both a paintbrush and a roller how the application works. Now with a first coat, you won't get a perfect finish. This is the first coat. It is the base coat in the color that you like. There's no primer or needed. So this is the color I'm going to paint this box. It is Dory Stance. It's a lovely dusty pink, a beautiful charcoal color. And I've mentioned it before, charcoal is a family business. We've been in the painting industry for more than 45 years. We manufacture household paints, which is called the Paintmaster range. You can see us in the Home and Taste magazine. And then charcoal is focused on job creation and empowerment, and the names of the paints are named after people. So this is a beautiful dusty pink color, which is actually named after my mother-in-law, Doreen. Oma, hier noem ek dit. Oma sê jy noem altyd na wie almal vernoem is behalwe vir my. Dis nooit met opset nie. So kyk ouma Doreen se mooi kleur julle. Dis 'n dusty pink. Ek kry nou nie mooi Afrikaans daarvoor nie, maar 'n vuil pink, dis wat dit is. So when working with a paintbrush and a foam roller, you actually get a very even application. So I've painted it on with my paintbrush, and while the paint is still wet, I evenly roll with a foam roller to remove any bristle marks. What the foam roller does, it also removes some paint from your surface, so you get a much more even application, but also a thinner coat of paint. So in an instance like this, instead of maybe painting 2 coats, a third might be required because I'm removing some paint. But can you see, I'm pressing very lightly how the foam roller just removes any bristle marks from your surface. So this is a tip. If you want a very even application, which almost looks as if the paint was spray painted onto your surface, this is how you do it. So I'm not pressing hard, I'm pressing very lightly, and the other tip is to do it while the paint is still wet. So I'll do this, I'll repeat the process, and I'll finish the entire box in the same way. But can you see the difference with the application with a foam roller and a paintbrush? It's a much thinner application, but then again smoother. So you decide what you like. And this is how you do with both a paintbrush and a roller. Can you see the air bubbles that appear on the surface? And we have discussed this before, so bear with me. So the air bubbles is quite natural, but make sure when working with a foam roller, no breeze in your room, and don't roll while the paint is already busy drying. that is when you will get a very rough finish on your surface. So just gently roll while it's still wet. And this is my first coat. Now, very important. Once my first coat is applied, I leave my box to dry. And depending on the weather and the thickness of the application, anything between 20 to 40 minutes is required, and only then will you start with your second application. Kaylee, are there questions?
Yes, there's one here. Waar koop mens sulke mooi bokse, Johannesburg?
P&A's, Chinese shops. I know not everybody wants to hear that at this point, but we don't judge. Chinese shops, you can find them, but you can even use old shoe boxes. But those are the places you can find. Even Games sometimes sells them, Macro. So just keep your eyes open. I say every time I walk into whether it's a mall or a shopping center or a shop, you start seeing possibilities. Because you just know, oh, my hat, I can chalkle all of this. There was a lady on the Chalkle Creations page that said sometime during this week, she so badly wished that she was the owner of a second-hand store. Because she just now wants to chalkle everything, and that's really what happens. Okay, so now this is my first coat. I'll now leave this to dry, and then I'll apply my second coat. Now remember, the pigment strength in whites, yellows, reds, and some brighter colors are weaker than other colors. There's nothing wrong with the paint, especially yellow. Yellow in the paint industry in general is a very weak pigment. So what you do when working with yellow, and here's a tip, first paint a base coat in a grey, something like stone wash or cement grey. Okay, before you start working with the yellow, and then you will need less coats. John's Joy is a beautiful color. It's a bright yellow, but to compromise for the brightness of the color, you'll have to add more coats. There's nothing wrong with the paint, I promise you. And nothing wrong with yellows. We see it when we paint with enamels, in yellows, when we paint with PVAs, but then you just apply more coats to have that bright yellow finish. Okay, and a grey underneath. Okay, so once your two coats have been applied or more, here I've worked with David. And David is a light color. Our box was a bright blue, and I worked with a foam roller. So I had smooth, thin layers of paint. I applied 3 coats. Now I'm going to start with a fun. And we have beautiful Paris stencils. I'm going to grab them here that I can show. And also, the reason for today's tutorial is to put you at ease. Things don't necessarily always need to be perfect. I'm going to share some tips. I'm going to start by washing my surface. I know we have done it before. I'm going to show you with the antique brown glaze how to create a washed effect. Now remember, with antique brown glaze, we've always said that it's easier to work with antique brown glaze on surfaces where there are crevices and detail. I'm going to show you again today how to do that. And if you want to create a washed effect with antique brown glaze, I'll be also sharing some ideas on that. We haven't done it before. So let's do it together. So I'm going to work, sorry, my stirring stick I left at the office. Just grab a cloth. When working with the antique brown glaze, we always work with a damp cloth. I'm working with mutton cloth. Mutton cloth is available on our website from our stockists. So it comes in rolls, and you just cut it according to the size you prefer. More or less the size of an A4 page. You rinse it out, you shake it out, because there are frills, but I'll show you how to use it. Okay? Then, all Chalkle Paints products are water-based, and this is so amazing. So you can add paints and glazes together. You can tweak colors. There are no restrictions. Just clean well with a lacquer thinners before you start. So I don't necessarily want a brown finish on my surface. I rather want something more greyish. So I'm going to manipulate and tweak the color of the antique brown glaze. So I'm adding some antique brown glaze in a separate container. I have some cooled down boiling water, which I'm adding, more or less 30%. So it's 3 parts antique brown glaze, 1 part water, and then 1 part matte black. Let's do sheriff stone. I'm going to add a 1/3 sheriff stone. Yeah, it is sheriff stone, sorry. So I'm tweaking the color. This ratio with the paint doesn't necessarily need to be spot on 1/3 because I'm manipulating the color of the antique brown glaze. So I'm just mixing to see, and once I start applying it, I can still tweak it. This is creativity, so don't stress. As we work, we can tweak things, and you will also find ways that's easier for you. So everything I say is not a law, it's inspiration, and you will find ways that works better for you. So just see this as a foundation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush some of this mix onto my damp cloth. And I rub it in. So I'm actually going to work with a dirty antique brown cloth. And this is now to create an antique finish on a surface. Next, I fold my cloth like a ball in the palm of my hand. And with my free hand, I press it nice and flat so that it will rub on very evenly on my painted surface. Goed, bietjie Afrikaans. Ek weet almal wil Afrikaans hoor en ek is jammer as ek nie altyd alles in Afrikaans doen nie, maar ons het oorseese kliënte. Choco is op pad Switserland toe en Australië toe in baie klein hoeveelhede, maar ons hoop dit groei. Ons mense is so opgewonde om hulle name te stuur na die buiteland. Hoe opwindend is dit nie? So vir al daai kliënte wat na die tyd ook die video's wil kyk, en dit word geplaas op ons YouTube kanaal, moet daarom verstaan wat ons sê, anders gaan hulle dink ons is Grieke. Goed, so baie ligte druk, gaan ek nou beweeg met my antiek lappie op my oppervlak.
Nadine, while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes, you may, Kylie.
Must you always mix the paint with water?
This is not the paint. So the paint, you never mix the paint with water. The antique glaze is a product that we use to create paint effects, like I'm doing now. And the antique glaze, you will see on the instruction on the lid, I've just removed the lid. There is an instruction that says add 30% water. The reason why our glazes needs to be mixed with water is due to the fact that they are in concentrated form. Water contaminates over time, and we can't add the water for that reason at the factory. So you add the water as you need to use the product. Okay, but not with a paint. Choco, you never add water. Only when you want to do a paint technique called a line wash or a whitewash technique, which we will do again, but there are also videos on that on both our website and YouTube channel. So with our glazes, you add water, and I've added the sheriff stone paint to manipulate and change the color of the antique brown glaze. So now this was done on a very smooth and flat surface with a damp cloth to create a mottled washed antique finish. And that's why the antique brown glaze is called antique brown. So with the front of my cloth where there's no antique glaze on and where it's still damp, I now rub over my already washed surface to blend it in and to create something very beautiful. So on larger, smooth surfaces with antique brown glaze, this is how you will go about. Can you see how little antique brown glaze I use? So a very little amount really goes a far way. Okay, so here you go. And I'm going to do the, oh, my fingers are dirty. Sorry for that. Just remove. Also very important when working with the glazes, and you will also see that on the instructions on the lid, is to allow your paint to cure for at least 4 hours. Both the antique brown glaze and the clear glaze, we're not working with a clear glaze today, are pure acrylic sealants. So this is an antique brown glaze, but I've also now sealed my surface with a technique. How cool is that? And due to the fact that they are pure acrylic products, they will remove any paint that has not gripped to the surface. Okay, how beautiful is this, everybody? After a week of admin, this is really treatment therapy. And I'll do the same with my dirty cloth. I have not wetted again. With my dirty antique brown cloth, I just do the side of my box as well. So never ever are you going to throw away a shoebox ever again. Oh, wat heb ek daai pink verf vandaan gekry? In my hat. Okay, there's some pink paint. Now it's part of my surface. Look how beautiful that has come out. Oh, it's here, Kaylee, from that brush. Okay, now, tip. And we are going to do it together now. If something happened and you feel, you stand back, you look and you feel, oh, my hat, I don't like the shadow that I've created here, it's too dark, or you want to change anything. Remember, we said in the beginning, anything and everything can be changed. I will take some of my base color and I used Davet. I'm really now messing up here with a pink paint. Let me just remove this. Bear with me. Yeah, okay, please remove that. I'm a danger to myself. Okay, so my base color was Davet. I will add some, and I'm going to use my fingers for this purpose, add some Davet to my same damp cloth, or you can have a different cloth for each color. Just remember it needs to be damp. So I spread it in nicely evenly, fold it again like a ball, and I think the most important tip with this application is little paint, little glaze, little paint, and you can rather build on and make darker shadows as you progress and as you want to change something. So there's my Davet. I now want to blend it in evenly. And this will remove any blotches, any unevenness, and because there's so little on, I'm pressing harder.
Nadine, another question.
Yeah.
The mixture that you made in this console jar, can you just put it away afterwards so that you can use it again?
Just make sure you use cooled down boiling water, and I actually heard yesterday, boil your water, your kettle 3 times. In between each boil, you let it cool down, and then you have distilled water. I don't know how true that is, but then you know that you have most probably killed most of the germs that can be in the water and that can spoil your product, and you can put it away. Close it in an airtight container and reuse. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more to create the mottled look. And how beautiful is this? This is authentic, antique, easy, and I'm using glaze and paint on top of each other. I can change as I want to due to the fact that everything is water-based. Okay, I will also fix my sides, make sure I'm happy with the shadow that I created on there. And I will repeat this same technique on the outside of my box. I'm not going to do it now because it's going to take up time, and you know now how to do it. Does it make sense? Antique brown glaze on a flatter surface. And if you want to add more colors, you can add. Maybe wash with some dory stones. Let's do it so that you can see what it looks like. Let me just make it more damp. So you can experiment and play with color. Never be afraid to experiment. That's the only way you are going to discover new things and gain confidence in doing things. So I'm going to add some dory stones over here. Okay, let me leave it like that. My damp cloth. It's very subtle, but it's beautiful. So this gives a soft, dusty pink tone to my wash surface, and to be honest with you, I even like it more. So I don't know how well you will see it on the screen, but it's beautiful. It just gives that mottled, soft pink tone. Can you see something, Kaylee? Not really. Okay, but it's beautiful. I'm going to lift it up, and as it dries, you will also see the change that happens. Okay, now to do stencil technique. Let me show you. Imperfect sometimes is the most beautiful perfect. Let me show you why I say so. I think sometimes we so expect things around us to be so perfect, where the most imperfect things are most of the times the most valuable. So I'm securing my stencil with some masking tape, and I'm using Hamilton's masking tape. Kaylee, you need to remind me that I need to remind everyone else watching about our Women's Month workshop, live workshop that we are going to have, a free live workshop. We are going to have the 29th of August with a professional filming crew. So it will be professional. We are going to paint together. I think while I'm on the topic, let me show you what we are going to do. I'll show you the after next week, but I have a clean board here. Let me show you. And you can just face the box. So on the 29th of August, the invite is on our Facebook page. We are going to have a live, free Facebook workshop where you'll be sitting with me and painting together. We'll paint as long as it takes us to complete this, but we're going to do various stencil techniques, paint techniques together. Just go look on our Facebook page for the invite. If you need it, message me and I'll send it to you personally. Okay, so we are going to be creative together for Women's Month, end of August.
Nadine, can you just show what you painted there? They just want to see it again.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. So there you can see it's starting to dry, and you can see the subtle pink and the washed effect. And now if you look at this one, I did not include the pink and how different it looks. So you can manipulate and play until you're happy, and combine colors, add colors as you find fit, and that matches and work in the space you are busy with. Did you see it nicely, Kaylee? Can you see the difference on the screen? Colors. Okay. Next we are going to add stencil work in the color cement grey. We are doing a Paris theme today, so we are sharing ideas on Parisy colors. I'm going to turn it like this. Can you see better? Now, a stencil brush is nice to use, especially on a rounded surface. And we are going to do an imperfect stencil technique. So I dip my stencil brush in the paint, and I still see a lot of questions on stenciling, and that's why I decided to show again. But can you see how much paint is there? due to the fact that I need to show and tell, I'm using my hand, as you can see. You don't need to do it, okay? You use newspaper next to you and you rub off there. Oh, sorry, I just made a mess. I want to clean. Okay, so I use my hand. I remove any excess paint. And I will still, on a cardboard next to me, remove more excess. Where the paint likes to gather is on the side of your stencil brush, and that's really where you need to make sure that your brush is nice and dry. I secure my stencil so it doesn't move while I'm busy working, and in circular movement and very imperfect, I'm applying my stencil work in the color cement gray. Now you do find many tones of cement. There isn't one cement color. This color is just called cement gray. I grab from my hand. Now you can see why. Because I need to hold down, show. Very little, very soft pressure. And you will see when I lift this, due to the fact that I'm working with so little paint, there's no way that the paint can leak underneath my stencil. And some areas I'm pressing harder, others I'm pressing softer. I really want to create something that is not perfect. You, depending on what you're painting, you can do perfect stencil work as well. Just for our theme today, this works perfectly. And I'll show you how to pattern repeat. Beautiful choco stencil. So found from your nearest stockist. If you want to see on our website the catalog, this is listed under the A3 sizes. And now what I do is I remove and just look there. The fact that it's not perfect makes it beautiful. And I'll show you what we're going to do afterwards and share a tip if you want to hide any imperfections on stencil work. Remember, there are always ways of fixing. Now for a pattern repeat, I'm just going to find my pattern. Let's see where's the easiest way to find it. Over there. Find it. Oh, where is it? Did I repeat it like this? Let me just see. Yeah. So there, I put it on top of that pattern. I make sure it's placed nicely in position, and now I can repeat it again. Okay. Little paint. Can you see how dry my stencil brush is? And I'm still removing any excess. Very light initial pressure to make sure if I missed a blotch of paint on my brush, that it doesn't leak in underneath. And I'm going to share some more inspiration on this. If you now want to incorporate maybe a pinkish color, and Dory's Dance is a beautiful French pink on top of what I've already created. My hand is a palette, I'm so sorry. You can now just have areas, and you will see the difference when I remove it. I don't think it will be that clear now. Just here and there, add some pink. It's subtle, but it's going to make a difference. And fine lining is a beautiful, soft, dark egg green. So it's subtle, as you can see, but we will definitely see a difference when I remove the stencil. So just here and there, some blotches of pink. And let's remove the stencil. You can add more if you want to add more. Let me just put this away. Okay, so there you can see the pink tones. Subtle, but it's there and it's beautiful. Now, a tip. Whenever you want to hide any imperfections when you've done stenciling, this is a great tip to remember. I, for instance, stenciled darker on that section than on the other sections. So I take my 100 grit piece of sandpaper, I roll it up, and very light pressure. I'm also working on cardboard, so it's not a timber surface, and I sand. Can you see how I remove the dark spots to create a very soft shadow underneath? Because this is actually my base shadow section. And now with the sandpaper, I'm also creating an even tone on my box. Furniture pieces, ladies, this is beautiful. Beautiful way of adding some pattern and color on a furniture piece. I don't know if I've mentioned, but after this week of admin, I'm having fun. This is so therapeutic. Okay. And now I'm going to add another stencil on top. Look how stunning that looks. So it's soft. It actually looks like wallpaper. It doesn't even look like a painted finish. There's just some inspiration on the pinks. Okay, next, I'm going to add another stencil. So on this box, let me just remove whatever is extra on the table to make some space. On this box, I've created, oh, there are the feet. So this is a beautiful box. I've created stencil work, as you can see, and I'll show you how to create those shadows as well in a moment, with this stencil, which is a beautiful tall stencil. And due to the fact it spreads a quarter, that it has lots of detail on it, you can just use a bottom section, or you can just use the writing over there, which I'm thinking of doing now. So I am just going to use the writing section over there, and to mask out anything else that you don't want to be on your surface. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to plan this. I just want, on the box I'm busy creating, I don't want those lines. Okay, I don't want that pattern. I don't want this. This will be a much simpler design than the one that I've prepared previously. I'm not going to mask out everything else, just where my stencil brush can possibly touch. And there's an opening that I need to mask out. And let me put my masking tape on this side, because this is where I'm going to stick it down on my box so that it doesn't move while I'm busy stenciling. I'm going to find the center and also make sure it is straight. Sorry, I'm working upside down, so let's move it more up. I just want to see that it's more or less straight. It needs to be straight. And I'm going to mask it on this side as well. And I am only going to stencil those words. Okay, and you will see there's a reason for everything. I'll show you now. And I'm going to use my stencil brush and matte black. Remove any excess. I do come clean, believe it or not. I press any areas down with my free hand that can lift. Move in circular movement. Yeah, Kylie, let's take it out of the way. You're so right.
Nadine, here's another question while you're busy enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Can I use the paints on plastic buckets as well?
Yeah, you can definitely. With plastic, there's a slight change in preparation. So you plastic surfaces, enamel surfaces, previously waxed surfaces, first need to be sanded to create a rough texture. Many plastic surfaces have got an oil coating on them, so you first need to sand, 100 grit piece of sandpaper, then clean with your lacquer thinners. Allow your 20 to 40 minute drying time and then paint. Last week you will see that video on our Facebook page, also on our website. Oopsie, moved, sorry. Also on our website and YouTube channel, we did a plastic garbage bin. Okay, but first sand well, 100 grit piece of sandpaper, then lacquer thinners, and then paint. Okay, and there is our word. And then I moved while I was busy explaining, but I'm going to give a light sand just to hide any imperfections. And now I'm going to, how beautiful is that? Now I'm going to create my shadows, and I'm going to show you how. So with my same mix of antique brown glaze that I mixed earlier, so I'm rubbing my paintbrush in there, but I really want to allow the side of my paintbrush to be nice, not wet, damp with the antique glaze. And I'll show you now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to remove any excess with some kitchen towel. So it's damp, but it's not wet. But this is the section that you're going to work with to create shadows. So I'm just removing any excess. Squeeze it out. And then with that side of my brush, I'm actually going to rub on the edge of my box. It's still too wet, so let's make it more dry. And you know what? A normal fiberglass brush actually works better because it's rougher. It's not as smooth as an enzyme brush. And it needs to be nice and dry. So I'm just going to remove any excess again. So the drier, the greater the success. And I have a piece of cardboard where I can test first. Make it really dry. The drier, the better. And I don't want paint on the tips. It's not paint, it's glaze, antique brown glaze. So I'm working with this section of my brush. And what I'm going to do, just making it darker. With my damp cloth, I remove any excess. So there, I'll just take my cloth, remove any excess, get the shadow nicely sitting there. I'm creating a shadow. And I can do the same at the bottom. Let's do it. And once you start playing, you actually don't want to stop. Once again, I take my damp cloth, just wipe that section. I'm working from a different angle, so let's work from this angle. It's going to be easier. And can you see how the shadows just come along? Any imperfections, you take your damp cloth and while it still hasn't set yet, just gently wipe to hide or wipe away completely. It's water-based. So you play until you are happy to create your antique shadow. Let me work from this side again. And now remember what I said in the beginning. If you want to change something, if I, for instance, feel, sorry, I'm working from different angles to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. If you want to see, or if you feel that anything needs to be changed, you can take, and this is the fun part, you can take your cloth, take your first color that you worked with, which in our case was velvet. You look at your shadows, you wipe gently with your velvet over them, and you hide any imperfections to get a very even shadow effect. And voila. Okay, so if you want to, this is the last thing I want to share with you. So there's shadows. Don't be afraid working with the antique brown glaze. Just wash on top with your initial color. The moment you want to change anything, can you believe, and I'm so excited, that this was our box. I didn't even have an empty box here that we started with right at the beginning. Something that I want to add, and I just want to give inspiration and then I'm done. Okay, is if I want to add some texture onto this box. I remember now I still want to hide my mistake. So I'm going to lightly sand this section where my stencil moved while I was busy explaining something. Sandpaper. 100 grit, light pressure, and now it doesn't look like something that was stenciled on. It looks like it was imprinted on my surface. That's why I say sometimes the imperfect is the most perfect creations. And now if I just want to add a touch of texture on my surface, I would use our stencil of Paris paste. Now this paste sits rock hard. It creates texture onto your surface, stenciled surface, so you'll use it with a stencil. I'm just going to mix a little bit. I don't want to waste, as we are going to do a little section in this. I'm going to use matte black. Black and white together gives us a grey, and I'm literally just going to add this drop. Let's put this here and throw that away so that we have a neat setting. Sorry, let me just create some space. I'm going to show the leg as well, and I'm mixing some black, and you saw just a drop. The stencil of Paris discolors quickly, and it also dries 2 shades darker than your initial mix. I'll mix it. I'm going to use our French script stencil just on this section over here. There were questions of what the meaning of this is. We once had a French lady attending a workshop in Johannesburg, and she read this to us with difficulty because it's difficult to see the words. But it's a poem, a French poem about love. So it's beautiful. It has beautiful words. I promise. And then what we are going to do, we're just going to, with our stencil paste and our paint scraper, scrape this on. Once again, everything is water-based, so we just wash everything with water. Afterwards, I'm going to stop there, smooth it out, remove my stencil, and it will change. It will dry 2 shades darker, but now I also have some texture on my box. Table legs. Let's quickly do it because I am going to add some feet to my box. Okay. If this will be quick, kindly, I'll show you quickly how to do this. Okay, so table feet, you do as follows. We have our mix with antique brown glaze. Let me put my brushes in some water. Close my stencil jar. Okay, and I'm going to work with an artist brush and a damp cloth. And something like this, I can't read what it says, but it has got very fine bristle hair, soft to the touch, and it is round, or you can use the flat ones. And let's pretend this was our table leg. Now on timber surfaces, on wood, you don't need to apply primer with chalk, or you simply dip your brush in your paint that is not diluted with water, and you start painting. Okay, so this is exactly, and I'm using an enzyme brush from Hamilton's. This is a lovely brush to paint with to create a very smooth finish on your surface. Actually, if you start painting with charcoal and an enzyme brush, you would never want to stop. Look how beautiful the application is. Okay, so no need to prime, no need to sand, varnish surfaces. You also make sure the varnish is older than 6 months, and then you can simply paint. Now I'm going to do the legs of my table. Pretend this was the legs of my table. We'll do some furniture pieces next week. I hope my furniture, second-hand furniture, arrived. I'm going to use a damp cloth. I remove the excess water, that it's not too wet. You make sure you don't work. This is now my antique brown mix with my share of stone and my water, 30% water. And what I do is I paint in the crevices. My brush is not too wet. I take my damp cloth, fold it like a ball, and very gently wipe away while the glaze is still wet.
Nadine, they're asking where did you get these legs from?
I had these legs for a while. I know Galmar sells them. I don't know if they are Galmar's nationwide. Galmar sells them. Shamdor sells them. I hope that we can sell them soon. I'm going to source a supplier. Don't you worry. So I rub gently, evenly. Can you see there the glaze has dried already? So only on those areas, even with my finger, I can touch up with some of it afterwards. And now I can repeat the process here. And this is where the anti-glaze really creates depth on a furniture piece. And as you can see, I'm trying to, this is a very small, it's actually, where my brush gets dirty, I just move along on my leg to create a shadow effect with the anti-glaze. And where you want to hide any imperfections, you just go over that with your color. Until you are satisfied and happy with the outcome. I'm going to move it like this so that you can easier see what I'm doing. And on the larger surface with my dirty antique brown glaze to spread the shadow evenly everywhere. Okay, so this is to create depth and antique finish on the crevices of your legs of a furniture piece. Look how beautiful that is, and so easy. And you can repeat and change as much as you like. Now on an embellishment, the same tips and techniques will apply. I'm going to finish. This is fine lining that I've painted onto this embellishment. I'm going to make a fine lining box as well, and I'll post the finals. I still need to post the finals of our garbage bin. It's been standing at my back door for a week now. I'll send you some nice pictures. I actually just want to put it on the grass and take a proper picture. But there hasn't been time to move it. I'll move it in the morning and send you a final shot. So I'm painting my antique brown glaze on top of my embellishment. I'm taking my damp cloth and I'm wiping away. And just see how easily and effectively it changes the embellishment. And now this embellishment will also form part of my French theme on a different box, but just so that you know how I accomplished the look. And once again, if you want to change anything, this is a dry brush technique, and this, I promise now, is the last thing I'll be showing you. Also dry brush technique, you actually want a fiberglass brush and not an enzyme brush. Due to the fact that the enzyme brush leaves such a smooth finish, it's better, easier to do a dry brush technique with a rougher brush, a harder brush. So I'm putting very little paint on the tips of my brush, and still I'm removing the excess. Let's take that cardboard again. So it's very dry. Can you see there are no blotches of paint? And now I can just brush with that over my embellishment to create a different look. And once again, hide anything that I feel is not perfect and according to my desire. Dry brush, antique brown glazing, French inspiration from a chilly South Africa. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you again next week Thursday, 4:30, same place, same time. Let's just ask, was there any questions that I missed? Kaylee?
Can you use charcoal on steel?
Absolutely. Just clean your metal with lacquer thinners. If there's rust on your metal surface, first clean with a rust converter. Follow the steps on the product, and it's not necessary to clean again afterwards with lacquer thinners. That's to treat rust, but if there's no rust, clean with your lacquer thinners. Allow 20 to 40 minutes drying time and choco it. Thank you, keep well, keep safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next week.